Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. I've said it before and I will probably say it again because I'm not creative enough to keep coming up with new sayings. Predicting what Games Workshop are going to do is harder than trying to nail a jelly to the ceiling. I mean, I was never expecting them to ever revisit Warhammer Quest Cursed City. I certainly never expected them to create any new content. There was a time when I did. There was a time I clung to the belief that one day an issue of White Dwarf would plop onto my doormat and I would open that issue to find new scenarios, new heroes and new enemy profiles. I dreamed of a return to the glory days of Blackstone Fortress, when almost every issue of White Dwarf had something new to offer, to the point there was enough content for it to be combined in its own Blackstone Fortress annual. Alas, that never came to pass. I eventually cancelled my subscription to White Dwarf, and once the two lackluster Cursed City expansions had sold out, I thought that was it for Warhammer Quest, at least until such time as Games Workshop decided to release a new iteration of the game. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, on the 4th of April 2023, Games Workshop published a Warhammer Community article announcing free downloadable rules for use with Cursed City. And it's exactly the sort of thing I would have expected to see in White Dwarf. In fact, it's exactly the sort of thing they used to publish for Blackstone Fortress. You may know Games Workshop produced a series of rules for Army of One characters, incredibly overpowered individuals strong enough to enter the fortress and take down every threat single-handedly. Well, now we have these new rules for Cursed City, and they are doing the same thing, providing rules for 3 different one-man armies, namely Gotrek, the Light of Eltharion and Gardus Steel Soul. And the idea here is basically the same. These are characters that aren't really designed for use in the proper campaign for the game, although the rules do say you can certainly give it a go if you feel like it, but they are a way to shake up your one-off dungeon plunges. You just grab a character, set up an encounter of your choice, and then watch in awe as you absolutely decimate the forces of Radukar the Wolf. Running such encounters is simple. You pick any kind of journey you like. The rules recommend a hunt, but I reckon a boss fight would be better. The journey is not considered part of any quest you are currently playing through, so you don't get to feed any rewards or loot from this journey back to your usual heroes, and there are no consequences relating to success or failure of this journey to impact on your main campaign. During the game you will only have one initiative card for heroes on the initiative track, obviously, and no crises will occur as you don't have any allies to send out to deal with them. Finally, you replace the normal event table with one specially designed for lone heroes. It doesn't really do anything new or interesting that we haven't seen before, it simply removes events relating to crises or bringing defeated heroes back into play. But let's take a closer look at these one-man armies. Gotrek is our first hero. He has 4 activation dice slots, move 3/3, agility d6, vitality 2d12 and defense 1d12. He has a single weapon action, Zangrom Thaz. It rolls 2d12 and 1d8 and scores 4 wounds or 8 on a critical. It's basically a one-hit kill for almost everything in the game. He has the unique ability Avatar of Grimner, which means he can never take more than 1 damage from any source. Furthermore, if damage would take him out of action, he rolls the quest dice and on a 3 or higher, he doesn't take the damage and continues as normal. His other ability is Crag Blackhammer's Master Rune. If he rolls a crit on all 3 of his attack dice, the target is slain outright. They cannot use any abilities to reduce or ignore the damage. So yeah, like I said before, Gotrek is all about one-hit kills. He gains an inspiration point every time he drives off a hostile group, and of course once he inspires, he becomes even stronger. His move stat increases to 4/4, and the damage from his attack increases to 6 for a regular hit and 10 for a critical hit. He also gains the new ability Can't Stop Me Now, which allows him to make a free weapon action every time he kills an enemy with any weapon action that wasn't a free weapon action. Next up is the Light of Eltharion, a slightly more, shall we say, nuanced character. They have 6 activation dice slots, move 3/5, agility d12, vitality d6 and defense 2d12. They have 3 different weapon actions. Fang Sword of Eltharion is a melee attack that rolls 2d12 and 1d6 and causes 3 damage on a hit or 4 on a critical hit. However, if the Light of Eltharion made a run action immediately prior to the Fang Sword attack, the damage of hits and critical hits is increased by 2. The second weapon action, called Selenari Blade, is a melee attack requiring an activation dice with a value of 3 or more. It rolls 2d12 and causes 2 wounds on a hit or 3 on a crit. The final weapon action, Searing Darts of Light, is a ranged attack requiring an activation dice with a value of 3 or more. It rolls 1d12 and causes 1 wound on a hit or 2 on a crit. The damage from these attacks cannot be reduced or ignored. This character has the unique ability Seek Vulnerability, which requires a dice with a value of 4+. For the rest of the turn, damage from the Selenari blade cannot be reduced or ignored. They also have Spirit Armor, which reduces all incoming damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. The Light of Eltharion gets 1 inspiration point each time they roll all crits for a melee attack, and once they inspire, pretty much everything gets better. They get punchier, faster, and their weapon actions become easier to pull off. They also gain the new ability Blazing Light, which negates the effects of Night, as all hostiles on the character's board tile are no longer treated as being empowered. That's a nice thematic ability. Finally, we have Gardus Steel Soul, who has 4 activation dice slots, Move 3-4, Agility D8, Vitality 2d12, and Defense 2d12. His Sigmarite Rune Blade is a melee weapon that rolls 2d12 and 1d6 and causes 2 damage on a hit or 3 on a crit. His Warhammer weapon action requires an activation dice with a value of 4 or more. It's a melee attack that rolls 2d12 but does 4 damage on a hit or 6 on a crit. His unique ability Saintly Assault Run requires a dice with a value of 3 or more, and for the rest of the turn Gardus only needs to use a dice with a value of 1 or more for run actions. He also has a Warcloak action that requires a dice of 6 or more and can only be used once per turn. You roll an activation dice and get that many free attacks using the Warcloak, which is a dual weapon that rolls 1d12 and causes 1 wound on a hit or crit. Finally, he has the Aura of Purity, which is an extra defense roll. Whenever Gardus takes damage, you roll the quest dice, and on a 10 or more the damage is completely ignored. He gains additional inspiration by taking damage, gaining 1 inspiration point for each time he suffers at least 2 wounds, and once he has inspired, his attack, defense and speed get a boost. The most notable improvement is the Aura of Purity starts negating damage on the roll of an 8 or more. Considering he rolls for the Aura after first rolling 2d12 for defense means he has a very good chance of shrugging off a lot of attacks. But there we have it, that's a quick look at the characters. I didn't cover every tiny detail, so you may want to go back and pause the video for a closer look, but I am also going to include the link to the rules in the video description below so you can download everything for yourself. Overall, what are my thoughts? I have to admit the Army of 1 characters for Blackstone Fortress weren't my favourite part of the game. While it was fun to run through a dungeon once with a superpowered hero, it didn't feel like content I wanted to revisit that often, and I think there are even some of those characters that I never even used. And I guess I feel the same way about these. It's a fun idea to dive into a dungeon with an overpowered brawler for a one-off adventure, but I can't imagine doing it often, and I wouldn't buy any of these miniatures specifically to use them for playing this type of adventure. Despite that, I am of the mind that any new content is good content because it's keeping the game fresh, it's keeping the game alive, and it's giving something back to the fans who have stuck with the game system. It shows that Warhammer Quest is still bubbling away at the back of Games Workshop's mind somewhere, which can't be bad. And heck, it's free, it doesn't even cost the price of a White Dwarf magazine. I know that some people may see this as just a way for Games Workshop to push sales of some of their expensive named character miniatures, but I'm not quite that cynical. I always saw this sort of content as a bonus for people who already have those miniatures, a way to get a bit more use out of them, and for everyone else, it's an excuse to start proxying. And so yeah, there are other things I would have rather seen, new regular heroes and new monsters that you could add into the full campaign rather than being gimmicks, but this is really nice to see. A really nice, unexpected surprise. I approve. Now if they want to run up some rules for the Witch Hunters Galen and Deloria, then we're really talking. But let me know in the comments what you think, because that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.